Hello, hello, welcome. Just another wonderful treat of fragrance of self-discovery. We are here in the self-discovery course dealing with essential oils, connecting to ourselves, to our past, to our healing, self-healing, mind, body, and soul. And today you are for a very special treat. I have an amazing woman, personal friend, who is also my coach and my mentor, and who really has been through quite a journey in her life. She has been through quite a lot in her life. And what amazes me about her is her ability to really heal herself and to find the strength to really approach life in such an optimistic, such a positive manner. So she's really one of the most extraordinary professionals and friends that I'm lucky to consider myself. I'm lucky to consider myself to be her friend and to have her in my life. So without further ado, let's introduce Diane Turner. And Diane, hello, how are you?
Hi, Irina. Thank you so much. And that was such a lovely introduction. Say thank you. I hope I can live up to all that.
That's who you are. And
thank you. Thank you.
Like I didn't say enough, actually. But please tell us about, Diane. Please tell us about who you are, what you do. Tell us about a little bit of your personal journey and how it led you to this point in your career.
So first of all, let me just say thank you for having me here. And I hope to share some information that your listeners will find really useful and helpful and will maybe spark their curiosity to go to the next step, whatever that is for them. So who I am professionally and personally really is one and the same. So I have a master's in social work. I've been doing both psychotherapy and life coaching now for oh my goodness, almost 40 years. It tells you how old I am. So I have a private practice both in Chicago and really across the world. I've had clients all over the world. And although my career started in a very traditional way with a graduate degree in social work, and then ultimately starting a private practice for myself. It took a turn because of my own personal challenges. I have a daughter who has disabilities, and a number of years ago, my husband became ill with cancer and subsequently died. So all of those challenges have led me to a place in my career and in my life where I take a very broad view based on both my own experiences as well as the experiences of many teachers that I've had, many different healers from different cultures. And I would say that my professional career has taken a recent twist and turn in that I've added a movement component to it, as you know. It's how we met. And that has really become a very powerful part of integrating the mind, body, and the spirit. So I really emphasize in my coaching as well as in my with any client, I emphasize mindfulness and intentionality and ritual, which is what we're going to talk about today. So creating a ritual practice that will help us move through difficulties and challenges. And that's really how, because of my own challenges, that's how I got to this point.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So what kind of coaching do you do? Can you tell us a little more about?
Yes, of course. I'm sorry. I got it. So the nature of my coaching really is strength-based. It's really about helping people move forward in their lives. It's really about becoming aware of patterns that no longer serve them. And integrated into that is my knowledge about meditation, about guided imagery, about aromatherapy, about energy work, about shamanic practices from all different cultures. And so it really is a pretty broad base of tools that I use, that I come to the table with. And so when someone comes to me for coaching, they really are going to get an experience that is in some ways, very grounded in traditional coaching, which came out of a business model, which is, I'm here and I want to get to there. How do I do that? And it's grounded in that, and yet it's very expansive for the clients that get coached. And they often find themselves becoming curious about new or different ways to look at things, new perspectives. And so one of the things I wanted to mention to you, which I didn't say earlier, and that is that I've documented my own personal journey and integrated coaching into the book that I wrote, which is called Heart Wisdom, a concise companion for creating a life of possibility. And we'll talk more about that later. But in that book really is a reflection of both who I am and the way that I work.
Beautiful. Yes, I do have a copy of that book, actually, and it's a phenomenal. It's my bedside Bible.
Thank you.
When I'm feeling down or I need a little inspiration, I open that book, and sure thing, I always find what I'm looking for on that particular day.
Thank you.
And what I heard you say is that your approach is really individualized, and because that's also the reason why I asked you to be a presenter at the course, is because I know you emphasize holistic and at the same time individualized approach in your coaching practices and how you tailor to different clients. And that's what I find phenomenal also by your practice, about that you are traditional and at the same time you integrate all this ancient healing modalities.
Yes. Well, I'm so fortunate to have been able to travel and study with different people in different cultures. And in fact, I've been to South America several times and taken groups there where we actually work with indigenous healers, both men and women, in very sacred places. And so that began to really pique my interest in terms of the power of ritual and how very simple but ancient practices could be integrated into our daily lives. And that's really what we're going to talk about today.
Mm-hmm. And can you tell us more about that? Can you tell us, I know you mentioned that you studied with indigenous people.
Yes.
And the topic of this presentation is ancient healing.
Yes, in a modern age.
Right?
Right.
I know we're going to connect it with rituals a little later on, but can you tell us about your experience and how we can apply what you know, what you learn in our everyday lives?
Well, I'd say that probably the most important takeaway for me is being able to both look at what we're presented with right in front of us and then to expand that to a bigger picture view. Because knowing that we're connected to each other, no matter where we are, no matter where we live, no matter whether we know people or we don't know people, we're connected through energy, right? And so really what I learned is that we are energy beings wrapped in skin and bone, so wrapped in physical form. And yet what I learned from these ancient people is that we have so many connections to generations, 7 generations who came before us, and then 7 generations after us. So our footprint in this world, as we are right now, really is influenced by the people who came before us and by those who are going to come after us. So we're not only absorbing, taking in, integrating those ancient practices, but then we're making them our own. And what are we putting out into the world? What are we spreading? And so we get a choice about what we say or how we say it or how we move through the world or how we move through our own lives. And so meeting and having the privilege of working with ancient healers really expanded my view and really let me know that there is so much that we don't know. And so being a lifelong learner and a very curious person, I was fascinated by that. And so now when a client comes to me and has a particular issue and feels so stuck in that issue, just being able to reference nature or reference ancient practices gives them a sense of the longevity and the connection and the flow that can happen in their lives. And so that becomes so hopeful and filled with possibility. And so I would say that that's kind of the intersect of my training, which is pretty formal training in psychotherapy, and my experience of working in nature, in sacred space, with healers who are very connected both to ordinary and extraordinary reality. So it's pretty cool.
It sounds amazing. Phenomenal. And the fact that you had this incredible experience working and being connected to this incredible people is really, it's great. It's so great. And and it's so relevant in our course because I know I've included a whole unit on ancient history of our ancestors using herbs and aromas in rituals, in healing practices, because what I found as I was doing my personal research, I found how many publications out there just skip through those things.
Right.
Mention it briefly and then jump into like chemistry of oils, which is very important too. But it doesn't really explain who we are. It doesn't, because why are we using certain herbs or certain oils, right? It comes from the ancestors. Our ancestors have been using it. Comes from generations to generations, and there's certain applications for that, which brings us to rituals. And it really helps us understand who we are and where we come from and why we do what we do. And
absolutely.
And why certain practices exist. And without with this being said, I would like to ask you about rituals now.
Sure.
And you did mention power of rituals. Can you expand on it a little more? Tell us why rituals are important and powerful, and how maybe you can introduce us to some rituals that we can use in our everyday lives.
Yes, of course. So let me say a couple of things about ritual, and that is that historically, as you were referencing, there is so much evidence of the presence of ritual in almost every culture. I don't know a culture where ritual didn't exist. And so what we in our contemporary Western culture think about as ritual sometimes is a very stiff or constricted or prescribed practice. And of course that is one way to look at this. What I would say to you, what I learned though, is that rituals can be so powerful and very, very simple. It can be anything from anointing yourself with an oil before you enter into a meditative state or sit down to write or do something creative or have a difficult conversation or go out on a date or, in many different situations. Or it could be something like doing a yearly inventory where you write down the things that you would like to release because you don't want to carry them any longer, and the things that you would like to transform and bring back to you. And then the ritual is both the writing down as well as the destruction of those things. So sometimes burning those papers or releasing them into water or even shredding them if you aren't living in a place where you could do either of those things. Mm-hmm. But really having the intention to discharge and release things that are too heavy. So that's another really powerful ritual that I sometimes will do with people or suggest at certain times of year. They're particularly potent times for doing that particular ritual. Or it could be something as simple as lighting a candle. It could be, before you go into the shower in the morning or before you, or when you sit down to I personally sit down in the morning and I journal and I write. That's when I do most of my writing. And I'm kind of in my sleep state, dream state still, not quite awake yet. So I sit down with my cup of coffee and I I light a candle. I might light some sage or some Palo Santo, which are used for cleansing and for opening. And then I sit down and I write, and it helps me to move from my left to my right brain. And it gives me a little pause from the ordinary and moves me, kind of opens the door to the extraordinary. And what I would say to you is that ritual is a practice. So the first time you do something, you may not have that experience. You may go, what is this really doing? I mean, seriously. And once you practice and you make a commitment to it, like anything else, it has its own magic attached to it. And so you may begin to notice things that you hadn't noticed before. It could be a greater sense of stillness. It could be that you're accessing information inside of you that you didn't realize you even had. It could be a greater sense of clarity or of wisdom. So ritual is a door opener. In and of itself, it's a practice. And the power of ritual is that it opens the door for us to get clarity of mind and of heart. It helps us to release what we no longer need, or to release energy that we'd like to transform to come back to us in a better way. And it also helps us to manifest things. So if we say, well, by this time next year, this is my intention, and you create a practice that feels potent around that, and you do that regularly, who knows? You might actually see some change. So again, the ritual in and of itself is not going to get you there, but it's like the door opener. It's like a pause or a bridge between your left brain and your right brain. So does that help? Does that explain what I'm...
Absolutely.
Where we're headed in this?
Yeah. No, it explains beautifully. And you also said a key word, which is pause.
Yes.
Sometimes we are just kind of like speeding down the highway with 200 miles an hour. We don't stop, and it really,
right.
I think what you said was so important, that it allows us to stop and pause and really reflect and look inside. And with ritual of lighting a candle, or using essential oils, or smoke, or whatever it is, right? It
right.
creates this. Also, it opens up our senses, and
that's right.
allows the information to flow through us. And I personally do full moon and new moon rituals, like you mentioned, certain times of the year. Mm-hmm. And I myself thought about rituals as something that is complex and structured, but it doesn't have to be. And I light a candle, and it's my way to pause and really understand, well, what is it that I want? Where am I going with this? It opens the doors, and just like you said, having that sacredness around me.
That's right.
And being connected to my ancestors who had done the same.
That's right.
In the past. It's just a really magical moment. And so would you mind sharing a couple of rituals with us today, Diane, that you personally love and find powerful or interesting or helpful, healing?
So I think there's probably a couple that I practice regularly that are they've just become part of the way that I live. And the first thing is that I'm a pretty big advocate of using some sort of sage, or, like I said, Palo Santo, which is a type of resin, a wood that comes from South America, and creating smoke that will clear energy. So one of the things that you can do if you feel like the energy is just a little heavy, or you wake up and things aren't quite right, or you sit down to meditate or to write and you want to just set a tone. Of course, remember that the olfactory sense is one of our strongest senses. You know that as an aromatherapist. So using smoke as a way to clear the energy and to wipe away anything that might be kind of sticking to us. And it's symbolic, right? It's not literal necessarily, although there may be people who feel literally it does kind of break that up. Mm-hmm. And so if you think about just taking some sage, and I prefer white sage myself because I like the aroma of it. It's not as harsh. It has a little bit more feminine vibration to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I light some sage and then I blow it out, and the smoke from the sage is the part that you want to use, and putting it in a safe container, and then actually scooping the smoke towards myself so that it's literally clearing my energy field. If you think about your chakras and you just go down your body, down the front of your body, if you're with someone and they can do this for you, they might hold the sage and you kind of like breathe it in, and then they can go around the back of you.
And you bring it to you, right?
You bring it to you. And so what it's doing is you're actually having a relationship with this smoke, with the power of this clearing. And so many groups that I lead and many groups that I've participated in, as the beginning ritual, as people enter into sacred space, they'll do a cleansing or a clearing with smoke. And so it becomes a very powerful way to take a breath, to breathe this in. It's not about, and it isn't about, how much smoke you can breathe in. It's really very gentle. And so it really is this very gentle and yet powerful way to clear your energy field. Because if you think about it, our field exists. If we put our arms in front of ourselves, I don't know, you can't really see me, but if you put your arms in front of yourself and you draw a circle all the way around yourself, that's where your energy field is. That's the extension of your energy field. But when we're stressed or when we're in struggle, that field gets pulled in. And so everything gets contracted. So this is a way, again, to just kind of open your field up and open up that energy so that you can receive something, whatever it is that you're there to receive. And so that's the intention of that. It's a very clearing and opening ritual. The other ritual that I love, and being that you're an aromatherapist, I'll talk about this a little bit, is anointment. And of course, there are many, many oils that are appropriate at different times, depending on what you need, depending on the vibration of where you are and what you're looking to shift. But the one that I actually use probably the most, both for myself as well as with clients, is oil of eucalyptus. And as you know, there's different kinds of eucalyptus, but basically using eucalyptus and anointing my third eye, my throat, my heart chakra, and then my belly button, so that there's a straight line all the way down. And the intention of that is both grounding, because if you think about it, you're going right down the midline of your body. And it's also using the breath as a way to integrate your right side, which is your feminine side, and your left side, which is your masculine side. And we all have both sides, regardless of gender. And so, but sometimes there's a disconnect, especially if we're in jobs, for instance, that require us to be in our heads a lot, or have to be strategic about things, or disconnected emotionally. And there's many jobs that require that, right? And then there are other times when we find ourselves so emotional, whether it's in love or in fear or in grief or in rage or in joy. They're very, very emotional and kind of prominent, and not necessarily connected to our thinking mind at those times, because those can be pretty extreme vibrations and emotions. So the anointment is a way to knit those two things together, to weave them together. And so, of course, there's many oils that will supplement whatever vibration you're needing. So, for instance, the oil of rose, I was told, you can confirm this or not, is one of the highest vibration oils that you can use. And so you only use a teeny tiny bit. And then there's an oil called grounding, and also one called Sacred Mountain, which are very much about keeping our feet on the ground, staying connected to the earth, being grounded in our bodies. And then there's a multiplicity of oils in between. So using anointment as a way to come into better balance and to also breathe deeply, which will help restore our energy, can be so helpful as we move through our lives. So again, this is an ancient practice, as you know. It's so I'm not even sure how far back it goes. It could be from the beginning of civilization, as far as I know, and then moving that forward to where we are today. It's a very powerful way to connect both to the big picture as well as to ourselves as we move through our lives.
Yes, well, you so beautifully said, Diane, and thank you for explaining this. Especially, it's interesting how we now going back to those ancient traditions and rediscovering them.
Yes.
And we are trying to understand them better and connect to them. And I know Oprah came out with the whole Power of Ritual network, and there's so many people that talk about power of rituals and different rituals, and more people are catching up to that.
Right.
And essential oils with the high vibrations, they are what universe gives us, right? They are nature's substances. They come from the same evolutionary processes that we humans do. And of course, eucalyptus makes sense to me because it's rich in ketones, which are very chemical compound that opens up breathing passages. And eucalyptus, being that our breath is really connected to a life energy, is a breath of life, like in Sanskrit, they say prana, right?
Yes, right.
So eucalyptus makes sense how it opens up our chakras and allows the breath of life to come in.
Yes.
It's a beautiful thing. And you would think such a simple oil, eucalyptus, that is so readily available everywhere.
Right.
So special and sacred. And it really is what you make it to be. And it's all about knowledge and educating yourself and really knowing, which is, so powerful. Is there any other rituals you would like to share?
I actually was thinking about this, and I want to talk about the power of prayer, which I don't always talk about, but prayer, regardless of your religious beliefs, prayer can be an incredibly powerful way to extend energy as well as to bring energy in. And so, there's been all kinds of research about people who are prayed for before they have surgery, or people who are prayed for when they're ill. And again, it isn't always about belief, but it is about having the intention that your words carry an energy or a vibration that can be healing. And so the words that you put together, it could be something very, very, very simple, can be incredibly meaningful in terms of whatever it is that you're trying to manifest in your life. So in other words, if you are speaking to yourself in ways that are positive, that are appreciative, acknowledging, and releasing of any judgment or negative beliefs, then your words, your language are going to put into the world an intention that is going to come back to you. So oftentimes people, one of the things that I do the most with both coaching clients as well as my therapy clients, and in my writing you see that as well, is trying to put into a positive framework the things that we have thought about that could be short-circuiting us. So when we talk about rituals of manifesting, one of the ways that we manifest is that we get very specific about what our intention is. So for instance, as we enter into new cycles or new seasons or new years, one of the things that we want to think about is what are our intentions moving forward, and maybe creating a ritual where you would put them in a little box, a little wish box. Some people call it a God box, or it could just be a spirit box, or you fold them up and you put them in your sacred space, whatever that is. It could be, some people have an altar that they use for their meditation. Some people have a special place by their bed where they might want to keep a keepsake. It could be a little pouch or something that's really private, just for you. And write down what your intention is, what it is that you would want to desire. What's your desire to manifest for a period of time? Just write it down and then ask to let it go. So it's not about attaching to an outcome. It really is about releasing it into the energy and power of the universe. So there's a ritual that's done in South America. It's basically a prayer bundle, and it's called a despacho, Despacho, as opposed to gazpacho, which is a delicious soup. But in the despacho ceremony, which is almost always done by women from the villages, it's a very simple collection of prayer. And you use items from nature. So you might use coca leaves or bay leaves if you don't have coca leaves. You might use candy because it's all about celebrating Mother Earth. You might use different items. And actually there's these, you can do different kinds of despachos. So there's despachos for love, there's despachos for healing. But the thing that's the most powerful about it is that it's a very simple ritual where before you place an item into the bundle, you blow a prayer into it. So if you took a leaf and you blew a prayer, you close your eyes for a moment and you think about what it is you would like to pray for, whether it could be for your children, it could be for love, it could be for health, it could be for somebody who's really having a lot of difficulty. It could be for global healing. It could be for anything, small or large. You blow your prayer into this and you place it in the prayer bundle. And this is a ritual you do multiple times. So one of the things that I've done is that I've had friends over and we've created a despacho for ourselves. And at the end of the ceremony, you fold it up into a little packet and you burn it. And you burn it so that the energy of that can be released into the ethers. So there's a little magic attached to it. And it's a little bit complicated because there's different steps. Separate and apart from that, though, is the power of prayer. So that if you took a petal of a rose and you, one by one, blew your prayer into it and placed it somewhere where you could see it, a bowl or whatever, and each petal became representative of your prayers for yourself or for whatever, and you left that rose in a place where it could just marinate, it could just kind of energetically deteriorate and return to the earth, or you could take those petals and spread them on the earth so that they would be returned. It's a way to communicate your wishes, your hopes, dreams, desires, and to connect them to Mother Earth, to this incredible container that we have, who we often will abuse or ignore or take advantage of. Yeah. So it's a way of honoring our connection to the earth, our heart connection to the earth. It's such a beautiful ceremony. So I would encourage people who want to try that to just take a flower. And I like the rose because of the vibrational quality of the rose. And take a petal, hold it up and blow a prayer into it. And then put it someplace. And when you're all done, take those petals and spread them somewhere in a garden, in a stream, in your backyard, in a pot with a plant, anywhere. but connecting it to the earth. And in that, you are actually offering something to the earth, your energy, your prayers, and this helps to both restore you as well as the earth. So it's a really powerful ritual. It's a little bit more involved than just lighting a candle, but nonetheless, very powerful.
It's beautiful. It's really, it allows you to bond with nature and
yes,
to recognize that there's nature around you and that you're part of this planet Earth. And it's all
that's right.
It allows you to have that sense of connectedness, which is
right.
And like you said earlier in this webcast, so many of us are detached, especially when we live in big cities. We detach from our planet. We detach from each other. We detach from our own selves. And I think it's right now is the age of great transformation.
Right.
And everybody is trying to find themselves and trying to find answers. And what's most important, they're recognizing how to look inside themselves, and that they need to look inside themselves and to also respect our nature and to bond with our planet more.
I think the ritual allows us to connect with ourselves as well as connecting outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
So as we started this conversation, we talked about individuals, and we also talked about the larger community of humankind and of how we connect to each other, our civilization. That is really the giving and taking that can happen with ritual. And again, looking at it as a doorway or as an opening to connection. We've lived for so long and often are still living in such disconnected ways, as you said, in cities. And if you go to more rural communities, you find them quite connected to the earth and to each other. And I think for those of us who don't live that way, it's so important that we remind ourselves that we are all one, and that what we say, how we live, how we act, how we treat ourselves, how we treat others, all has an impact on the kinds of life that we live and the kind of world that we live in. So these ancient practices are a reminder of how to do that. And they help to move us in that direction. So that's really what I talk about. And I just for a moment want to say that if people are interested in reading my book, again, Heart Wisdom, that within those pages, there are many rituals that they can experience. There's guided imagery, there's meditations, there's opportunities to journal, there's poetry. It's multisensory. It's very simple, so you don't have to know anything. And yet I've been told, even by people who've done a lot of personal growth work, that the simplicity of it really reminds them of how easy it is to get back on track when we're off. And so in that regard, that is heart wisdom. It's the truth of who we are. So, so check it out. I mean, I'm very proud of it. And I think it speaks to this in many ways.
And that book really comes from your heart, I can tell.
It does, yes.
I will include the information how to purchase the book.
Yes.
And where to purchase the book, and I believe it's available on your website.
It is, and my website is dianesturner.com.
Okay.
Just don't forget the S. There's an S in there. So, and it's available on Amazon. And what I would say is that it's almost easier just to get it off the website because I'm sending them out to you anyway. So, so Amazon calls me and then I send it out to you. So however you want to do it is fine with me. I would so welcome the opportunity to communicate more deeply about this and more individually about this as people take this course and they become curious. If someone wants to know more about this, I am offering a complimentary 30-minute coaching session where we can talk about integrating ritual into your life and looking at how powerful that could be for you. If beyond that, they're interested in becoming coached by me, becoming a coaching client, and sign up for a package, there is a complimentary book that comes with that. And of course, then if they're not interested in either of those things, the book is available for purchase.
Thank you, Diane. And Diane is being very generous to us by offering to each person who signed up for the course a free 30-minute consultation.
Right.
With, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, with focus on developing your own ritual.
That is the focus, right?
That's so magical. That's
Yeah.
great. And so I strongly encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity. Connect to Diane personally. I will include all her website, phone number, email information in the course. And please mention Fragrance of Self-Discovery course.
Right.
This is kind of a passcode for free consultations, and do connect with Diane, and also look into her book. It's truly an amazing must-have by your bedside. To have.
Thank you. I just want to say one more thing. If none of this appeals to you, there are so many different avenues to creating your own ritual, and it can start with something as simple as taking an intentional breath. So that is a very important thing to remember. So ritual does not have to be, it's so elegant. It can be so elegant and so full of grace, and it can be something as simple as a breath. So I just want to remind your listeners about that today.
Thank you so much.
You're
Thank
so
you
welcome.
Wonderful presentation, and for sharing this knowledge with us. Many of us have not had opportunity to visit the places you visited and study with healers.
Right.
So thank you for bringing this knowledge to the screens of our computers right now and sharing it.
Thank you. And I look forward to speaking with people as they take this course. That would be wonderful.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful day, Diane. Everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for listening. Fragrance of Self-Discovery, Irina, Diane Turner. Everybody have a wonderful day.
Thank you.